I'm Kim Weissenborn, and we're going to do Winslow Homer's Bermuda painting today. So we're looking at this, and we realized that there may be an underpainting of just like a creamy ivory underpainting, or that could be the color of his paper that has that yellowish feel to it. But I think it would be a good idea if we did the same thing. So I'm going to mix. First, I'm going to find my colors. And I'm just going to go with some classics. I'm going to go with quinacridone and gold. That's not it. It's got a lot of blue stuck on it, so I'm going to rinse it off. There.
Do you always start at the same place, Kim?
I usually start top.
You start at the top, okay.
Especially since I'm on the tilt. It
Okay.
just sort of makes sense. Okay, so I might need a bigger brush just to fill the space. So I'm going to go with this 18-inch brush. And I'm just going to put this down here just to find my colors right now. Nothing in his painting is really that bright yellow. So you might have to add a little bit of alizarin crimson over it. Nothing really like that either. If I add a lot of water though, you might get that that tint, that's that light.
Right hand side, yeah.
Yeah. See how you get that? There's like a peachy glow there. Can you see that? Yeah. Okay. And also, if I add a little bit of, let's see, I'm going to try ultramarine blue. That's like a real classic. And then just put that over it. That tones it down a bit.
Now you're getting some of the clouds.
Yeah.
That middle on the left and on the top right.
Yeah. So my thought is to use the three colors, and I'm just going to try the ultramarine blue for the water, see if that's the right blue. It's not quite. Let's see if cobalt might be it. Yeah,
Yes.
that's cobalt. Yeah, cobalt seems to be the color.
And then that last stroke you did, that was still cobalt, but not watered so much.
Right, a little stronger.
Wow.
So you see the difference between
Yeah.
that and that. And there, it looks like there's a little bit of yellow in some of the water, especially as you get back toward the horizon line.
I think you're right. I think he did that glaze all the way through.
Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. So the way to do that is to wet down your whole paper. You can either do it like with a giant brush and try to get it nice and juicy wet, like really drippy juicy, so that it stays wet long enough for you to do this process. You should also have all your colors ready to go, which I don't. I always forget that part.
As I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
And you're doing the bottom as well.
Oh, look, I had a little red on my clip. That'll work.
Yeah.
All right. As long as it's wet. Okay, see, if you look at it from the side, you can tell I missed a lot of spots, so you just kind of keep looking and make sure you didn't miss anything. Maybe even let some more water run down from, you can use a spray bottle, that could also work really well. All right, so I got it wet enough, I think. And what we're going to do is we're just going to put a yellow, quinacridone gold, or you could use a Aurelian yellow or Hansa yellow.
And you're mixing that with
I'm mixing it with the red. Oopsie, it's already dry. Look at that. So if it's already dry, you just add more water, so it'll help it facilitate the going down. And it will dry 20% lighter, so don't worry about it. Right now it looks really dark, but it will dry lighter. I know.
Oh, I'm so afraid. I know. I'm gonna get like streaks of yellow in it.
You put it on the tilt. I have little table easels. You can put it on the tilt. Just lots of water. Just, if you get it too dark, you just take clear water and you just run it right down from the top. Okay, and that will, even if you get drips and blossoms, this stage you can make a zillion mistakes and it will still be okay. So don't be afraid. It's okay. Down here, if you get that bead, you want to pick that up so that you don't get runbacks. You'll get little blossoms down there. So you can even take a paper towel and just go along the bottom. And that's how we're, step one.
Okay.
Okay?
3.
Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start from top to bottom. And if we look at the clouds, there's a lot going on. It doesn't seem like there's that much, but
Nope.
what would be the next step? You've
Top
done
left.
this nice glaze. So would you start with the dark?
I would start with that darker yellow because
This?
yeah.
Yeah. So the sky is done in at least 3 stages and waiting to dry between so that you get that texture and richness that you couldn't get if you were doing it all in one step. And I think that's the problem with a lot of people. They don't understand that you have to wait for things to dry and then get another layer in there. So I'm going to mix, I think I'm going to use my 12-inch, I think this is actually a 10-inch brush, but a 12-inch would be fine. And I'm going to mix a gray, and the gray is made by mixing blue, red, the same blue and the same red and the same yellow. So ultramarine, French ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson. Red goes a long way, so you have to really be careful not to add too much like I just did. And quinacridone gold. And once you put the gold in there, that's what starts to gray it up. I'm going to put a little more blue. And I'm going to test that gray and see if it's a little on the gray, warm gray. So it needs a little more blue, and it's more green. So you're going to, in order
Are
to
you
make...
doing the yellowish cloud on the left?
Oh yeah,
That
I
one,
forgot. That's
yeah.
what we're doing.
Yeah.
So you have to water that down. This is just an unwatered
Right.
version. So
Okay.
thanks for reminding
You
me.
think that's a watered down version of the one on
I
Bermuda?
think possibly. Let's see. Here's a watered down version.
Different.
I see more yellow.
I do too. I see a lot of yellow.
I see more yellow.
And I added way too much red, so yes, I have to keep working on it. Here we go. This might be more. Not yet.
More yellow. Yeah, I see a lot of yellow. That and on the top right, I see yellow and pink.
I do too.
No?
I'm looking right here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
She's
But
looking
it's
right
gonna
there.
dry later, right?
Yeah. Yep. And the two together, so I'm gonna get rid of my red, so it really took over. That's the thing about red, you have to really be careful to add just a dot. Because it does.
That's French ultramarine.
French ultramarine and either Aurelian or quinacridone gold. There's sort of the bluish, that's for the darker clouds, I think. And then watering it down. And more yellow. You could add yellow on top if it's a little too,
That's
like
good.
Now we're
That's
talking.
a little too,
Now we're talking.
there we go. So basically it's 3 colors, very little red, mostly blue and yellow. Good call. Very good. So you said you weren't good with colors, but you are.
I am. Thank you. I'll take it even though it's not
So
true.
if you do the dark and then drop the yellow over it,
Mm-hmm.
would that gives you that color, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. You can. The thing to remember is you are not to copy this exactly.
Right.
It's not possible.
Here's my thing.
Yeah, and you don't have to match. You don't have to worry because that's going to get you hung up, and you're not going to be
Yes.
free. And the watercolor's going to get you'll feel it in the watercolor. You'll feel your
Remember, we want to be loose, loose, loose.
right. So remember the last one you did. You kind of just let things happen as they happen. You're just using this as a reference to get a sky. So I'm going to try to get the most beautiful sky I can get.
Mm-hmm.
Getting as close as I can, but I may not get anywhere near it. I'm just going to give it a whirl and see what happens. You have to be willing to let the watercolor have a mind of its own and do its own thing. So I'm going to start hoping to get this, but I'm not going to, if I start to fuss and try to copy, it's going to get really tight and overworked.
Okay.
I like that one blue.
So-
That more like slate blue.
I'm just going to just lay over, I'm not even going to focus on that too much, but I'm just going to start with the side of my brush, laying in, that's pretty dark, adding a little water, laying in, leaving some underpainting popping
See,
through.
I love that.
And that's done with the side of the brush, just skipping across some areas. Having that same horizontal or vertical thrust in my brush stroke. So I'm not copying him at all. I'm just sort of trying to leave the whiter areas where they are and covering up the darker areas. Gets a little bit less intense down here, and that's a little too yellow. Add a little blue. Instead of erasing it, I'm just going to add blue on top.
Oh, that's really
I like that. That's pretty.
And I'm just rubbing it. See how I'm running the brush back and forth, messing up, you're getting that dry brush effect. So I'm hopefully maybe get even a better sky than Winslow if possible. This drip, the way to take care of that is just rinse your brush and rub the water.
Look at that.
Rinse your brush, rub the water. You can rinse it again and just blend it in. Okay, and while it's still wet, I'm going to go over some areas. Particularly up here.
Oh, a little bit of that bluish gray.
Yeah. While it's wet, it's going to sort of work together a little bit. And the side of the brush allows you to have that nice ragged edge that the clouds have. And oops, up here, look, where am I? I'm getting lost. Okay, here we go. So yeah, I'm not copying, but getting some variation. And then right here, I want to go with the dark. I'm not going over everything. I'm just sort of letting it touch in certain spots, leaving that underpainting showing through, so I get more layers and levels. This you can just go over with clear water again. And so you have like maybe a darker cloud. I left the light edge, so you have a cloud with a little bit of an edge, crispy light edge. You can carry this through even. So my sky is going to be a little bit, probably a little more wild than his. Soften some of this with water. I like to close up my edges a little bit. I like to have a lot of edges showing. Okay, that's where I would leave it.
And let it dry.
Okay.
Yeah.
You do your own thing.
All right, now we are going, where do you think we should go next? Where would you go next if this were your
I would
painting?
darken up some of those clouds.
Yes.
So you
Yeah.
complete the sky.
I do the water.
It's always a good idea to work around the picture, to not get so caught up in one area and finish it before you get to the next, because
Yeah.
sometimes you will find that you're building up an area too much and you've overworked it by the time you get down to here. So I always like to move around. Not the finishing is kind of like the icing. You know, painting never looks really good until the very end when you start putting on the darks and finishing it up. So what I would do is I would, like Luann said, I would start on the water. So how would you start on the water?
Do a light undercoat, really
undercoat
light.
again.
So you have the lightest part of the water actually coming toward the rocks, so that's probably trying to show waves hitting in that area. Of course, this is not Vero Beach, Florida, so we have a lot more surf in this water than Vero. Although Vero sometimes does have water that looks like this.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I
And my
would.
Stewart.
Did you notice though that the water toward the horizon line is not as bright?
It also has like a green tinge or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or is that from the underpainting?
It's well, probably having something to do with the underpainting, although it's not really dark underpainting. So they probably, what happens is the further away you get in the painting, to show depth, everything gets kind of gray. It loses its brilliance and also its sharpness. Although we do have a nice clean line, it is a little dark right there. Doesn't go all the way across dark, it's just there and there. But and it's lighter, as you come toward the viewer, it gets a little brighter, a little darker.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that shows depth. So if you want to show depth in your painting, everything in the distance is gonna be grayer. The the atmosphere is hitting it and toning down the colors. This, though, on the other hand, is not that gray. It's very dark, so interesting that he did that.
Don't you think you put that in very last?
Yeah,
though?
it's probably an afterthought.
Instead of a bird.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I don't want to put another bird in my painting. So cheesy. Okay, so I'm going to use a cobalt, and I'm going to start with some of my cloud color mixed in with that cobalt to see if that doesn't take care of the top part of the water. That'll gray it down a bit. So I already have it in there. Could help to re-wet this whole area if you're a slow worker.
She's looking
Raise
at
your
me.
hand if you're slow.
Yeah, so you could re-wet it with water so that you can move a little bit slower and have still that soft effect that the water has. So maybe I should do that just to show you how that's done. I'm gonna take my big brush again. I'm just gonna wet it. Right at the horizon line. And across. So this time I'm not gonna wet it so much. I want to get a little bit more variation in my wash. So here we go. We're going to start with this. Now remember, it dries 20% lighter, so you don't want to go too light with this. So once you get it in, you can see if it should be darker because it's going to dry lighter. So I'm going to go one more swipe over it.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know it's
Pretty
scary.
light
Huh?
up there.
I know. But
Brighter, maybe.
there we go. So I toned it down a bit. It will dry lighter than that, quite a bit lighter. And then I'm just going to reach into my pure cobalt. I'm not going to rinse my brush. I'm just going to slowly add, maybe rinse now this time. Just go with pure cobalt. OMG! Try to get those edges. You don't want to have crispy edges because it draws attention. Any kind of crispness draws attention to the edge, the sharp edges. I'm going to leave a little bit of lights coming through. Always work in this horizontal back and forth because that's the way the water is, horizontal back and forth. Get a little bit darker. Don't want it to be all flat one color, so it's okay to have a little variety.
So you're just, every time you do load the brush, you're just taking more pigment and less water.
More pigment, well, more pigment and water.
Okay.
So just more pigment on the brush.
Okay.
I have to have water in order to get it across the
Now,
picture.
you're not gonna put the rocks in.
No, not at this point, no.
Okay.
So I forgot he has some whites there, so I forgot about that part. So I'm gonna just
Oh, sure. Use that scrubber
just take my brush with some clear water and just wipe it off.
Oh, okay. Really like that.
Okay, so while that's still in the drying mode,
I'd buy her screw-ups.
I'm just gonna run some dark lines through.
Different areas.
Yeah, just to get a variety of color that and value he's got in the water that makes it really kind of interesting, but not they're separating it enough so that it shows up. You can even do a few of these little triangular. See how little triangles, little pointy.
No, I move, you're gonna film her, I can move around easier.
Yeah, we move around.
See how light it's getting? I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna just run that through one more time. Cover that up. Alright. It's already way too light. Shoot. Do
Is
one
it
more.
really?
And we know that because
Squint,
why? You're
squint. If you squint and compare, you
Yeah.
can
Squint.
see that it's already
We
too light.
squint the whole time we paint.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I haven't do that yet. I haven't figured that out.
It is a lot, it needs to be a lot darker if you squint. Holy crap.
You don't want to cover everything up. Even though his is all flat, I want mine to be a little less flat. Then you can squeeze out your brush and run some
Yeah.
lights through it. You have to rinse and squeeze, rinse and squeeze. So I'm doing these scalloped kind of pointy thing. Just in a few spots. You don't have to go get carried away and copy his, but to get the feeling that the water's moving. And then with the gray areas, I'm going to mix a little bit of dry red and yellow with my blue, mostly blue, and with a very dry brush. It's too wet. See how it dissipated?
Just disappeared.
Yeah. So I'm going to take just straight pigment, almost making a black, but mostly a blue black. And it's always good to test it here to see if I got it right. That's a little, it's pretty close to those darks I guess. A little more. See, my brush is so dry right now. Look how dry it is. That when I put these in, they stay put. You got big ones, you got little ones. I'm just going to do a few for now. I can always add more later. I'm going to do some blue.
Oh, they almost look green. On
Yeah, they look a little green. You can always go over them again with another color, just to blue them up a little bit.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I like the blue.
Man, that green one scared me. Like,
I'm
I'm
seeing
not
a
putting
lot of
that
it
in.
over here.
They go at an angle.
Yeah, they kind of do, don't they?
Definitely. The waves aren't coming straight at you.
Oh, that's
so
nice.
They're going west.
Yep. Okay, so just make sure they're not all the same size, shape, and distance. You get baby daddy mamas, and it's really important to make sure they change. Because if you get them too symmetrical, it's going to look phony. Okay, so that's about all I would. Ooh, and I can probably do this while it's still wet. This piece, right? Gotta have a steady hand. Still wet, so it's going to have a nice soft. And then that one.
What a difference just those two strokes made.
Alrighty.
Okay.
And that's cobalt.
Cobalt and the other colors.
Is that a test question? The other colors.
Red and yellow. I'm going to do some more over here. Okay, the red and yellow is important because you don't want to have it be like that's too blue, so you probably have to go over that later and tone it down a bit.
Okay.
All right, well, that's it for now.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so we're finding that the waves are really a challenge because a lot of the problem is people want to just make little worms like this all through the water, and when you do that, it looks fake. So the secret is if you sit back and you really look at what's going on there, that's a long stretch of water right there, and it has an occasional point to it, and they're not all the same distance apart. So the secret is randomness. So you're going to have like a line, it's random, it's not so perfect. You're all like getting like really perfect about it. There's one there, there's one there, all the same. You know, then I mean, even if you did a lot of that though, it would look more natural if you connected some. The fact is, and some are long, so you want to do long ones, you want to do short ones. They just have to be, some are connected. They're just, it's like almost like a calligraphy in the water. You're making like these beautiful squiggly marks. And the less careful you are, like some are going to be thick, and the less careful, the better it looks.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but okay. So this one obviously
And it doesn't go straight across the plate.
no, it kind of
angles.
moves up at
It
an angle,
angles.
yeah. And it's hard to do that too. So there's like a million challenges. I can see already though that mine dried a lot lighter. See, it dried lighter. So if I stand back and I squint, I see that I need to add a little bit, I just want to add a little bit more blue to that area. So I'm just going right on the dry paper. I'm just going to add a little bit more color to the water. And I'm going to go in the motion of the waves. So it doesn't, so it still looks like water. Instead of straight across, I'm going like that. See, I have
I love
blossom
that blue ridge
Yeah.
on the bottom of that one.
This one?
Beautiful. Nope, the one right next to it.
That?
Right there, yes.
Oh, that wave?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we have a few here. I'm just going over some of the area, not going over all of it. You always have to leave underpainting peeking through, otherwise it's gonna look flat. So I'm just adding a few more here and there. It's a little busy, so I'm gonna tone it down just a little bit right here. And they get smaller and flatter as they come out toward the horizon line. So there, I've got sort of a busy ocean. Not his ocean, but close enough. So once I get that, then I would move on down to the rocks. And the rocks are this really dark, pure pigment. So almost thick, like as if you were just squeeze it out of the tube and add the three colors together, all gushy and mushy. And you almost get a black. There's a blue black, so we want a more red black, so we're gonna put a little bit of red in there. Just dipped right into my red. And rocks are rough. So you're gonna be using the side of your brush, kind of in a back and forth, up and down motion. If you wanna lighten it in some spots, you can just pull water out that way to lighten it. I'm just sucking the water right out. I rinse my brush, I dry it on the paper towel, clean dry brush, thirsty, and I'll just pick out lights wherever I want them. And then you can add like thick red, orange sort of, in certain spots on top while it's wet, and it creates this beautiful color. I don't know, vibration almost. So I'm just laying color, like almost mixing right on the paper, adding some reds here.
That's pretty.
Creating something similar without copying it exactly. So I'm using the same three colors that I used in this painting, just to going a lot more pigment, a lot less water. So here we go. I'm just going to use this side.
That way you always get the same hue, don't you?
Hue? Yeah?
Do you think? By using the same ones, it doesn't, I don't know. maybe that's the wrong word.
Color harmony.
Yes,
You get color
yes,
harmony.
yes.
You don't have some weird color that has nothing to do with your
standing out all of a
painting.
sudden.
Yeah. So I'm just going along leaving the white popping through. I'm just going to go along the whole bottom of the page. I think, oops, I went too far. Okay, so
No, you didn't.
now I don't want to have the same color, so I'm switching it more to the blue now. And I'm just going to pop that in. And then I'm going to rinse my brush and let the water down here and let it sort of blend down. And I'm noticing that there's a little more yellow in it, so I'm going to go right into my yellow. Just add that. Add a little more water right there. So you don't even have to use a thirsty brush. If you just add water to the bottom, you'll lose some of the pigment and it'll seep down to the bottom. So I'm just going to get it a little more green. There we go. And I'm going to do that strong pigment. Just add a few more here. Just to give a variation of values so it's more interesting to start with. gonna pull that up because you're gonna get a run back. If you don't get rid of that, it's gonna dry and then create this blossom right there, which if you want, that's fine, but if you don't want it, you wanna get rid of it. And then I see that I forgot to add my water down at the bottom right, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of water down there. And it's got a little yellow in it.
Yeah. The secret is knowing when to stop.
Yeah.
Okay.
And not be so heavy with the brush. I find I know I'm too heavy with the brush.
Okay. Actually, this is really light right here, so I'm gonna just add water to it. When you have the tilt, it directs you don't have to push the paint around, it just does it for you, which is kind of nice. All right, so that's what I would do next. Okay. Okay. Ready? All right, so this is the part of the painting where you're like, oh my God, I just want to throw it in the trash. You know, this is always the part where everybody quits because they don't know how to bring it to the end. So what it's going to need is a few more, we're going to have to work in the sky a little bit more, and just a few, it's like the icing. This is the fun part for me because it's the icing on the cake, and it's what really brings the painting together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the clouds a little bit. And I have to find that gray again. So what is that gray? It's kind of like this blue gray. So it makes a little more blue in the gray to make it blue gray. Not quite enough. And that's pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to take the same technique I did before. I don't want to have my clip there because I always get these clips in my paintings. It's going to be my trademark. Oh, that must be a Kim Weissenborn clip mark in her painting. Okay, so you're going to go dark. Like this is going to dry. Remember, 20% lighter. So there has to be some dark in this sky in order for it to read as a storm coming. And it starts dark there. And you can rinse your brush a little bit, add water to it, and then continue through. You can change the shape of your clouds entirely if you want. So that's one. And then you can come up with your brush this way. And I don't like to cover up all the underpainting. I like to use it. So what I used to do in the very beginning is when I went back in, I covered up all my underpainting, and I couldn't figure out why my paintings just had no life to them, and that was the reason why. Finally figured it out. So I'm popping through some underpainting. It's a little lighter up there, so I'm going to cover that up, water that down a bit.
That one's gonna run.
Ooh, and it might have a drip. Gonna suck that up with a thirsty fish. And that one. Well, I kind of like the run back. He does have a few run backs. Oops, I just got it. Yeah,
It's raining.
It's raining. So I just wet it. Disappears.
And ours is there forever. Yours disappears.
Well, not if
It's
you
like
wet
a
it
water
right away.
spout. You could have turned that into a water spout.
So then under here it's a little bit lighter. So that's going to dry quite a bit lighter. And here. Oops, I'm still in my sky here. Go down lower.
Nice.
Yes.
Amazing how similar hers was.
Just that dark. You've got to get your colors darker, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
You just have
The
to.
darks are really, I think that most people are afraid of the dark. But the dark is good. In this case, dark is good. Okay, so you want to maybe add a few more of these dark ones in the water. This is a wave that seems to go all the way across.
But angles down.
Yeah, I'm not doing it.
No.
Yeah, I'm not on purpose. I just
No.
forgot. Yeah. See, yours will probably be nicely angled, mine won't. Okay, so just a few more here.
Nice. See, it's just popping it, isn't it?
Oh.
It's like dark.
Okay, this thing right here, I went up with my brush too much, so in order to fix that, this is the part where I would think fixing is good. Just want to take my scrubby, which is a
Okay.
scrubby brush,
Yep.
rinse it with have clean water because it's like you're taking a stain out of a white pair of linen pants. You don't want to take the stain out with a dirty brush. So I'm just going to scrub right at the edge of my horizon right here. See how it almost disappears when you do that? Ooh, I got a little yellow on my brush, so I'm just going to swipe it. And that took out
Yeah.
a little bit of the lump that I didn't want. I still have a little bit more lump here. I don't know that I would really do this. I don't like to do a lot of correcting. I like to let some of the original mistakes show. Also, if you want, see how there's this nice white, and it looks like he did scrub out there. If you want to have, if you lost some of your lights in your water, you could take your scrubby and you could scrub out, but swipe, don't blot. And you can bring some light back into your.
You
Yeah.
definitely had to scrub that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he did. He used sandpaper a lot too.
Oh.
Yeah, to get those bumps back on the paper.
Interesting.
But that definitely looks swiped, just the way the color goes through
It's
that white
softer,
area. Yeah.
So you could go too far with this. So you got to be careful not to overdo. But I think I do need some over here. I just covered up too much.
What a difference. What a
There's the
difference.
triple ones.
All right, and so the final, I'm switching to a very tiny brush. That's how you get your detail. And what are we gonna do? We're gonna do our little freighter. So that's the same three colors, just a lot of pigment, very little water, if any. Yellow, red, and blue. Just look how thick that pigment. It's almost like butter. It's so thick. What color is that freighter? It's kind of brownish. That freighter. It's just a long, skinny rectangle, and it sits right on the horizon line. Well, maybe mine's too big. I don't know. There's that. And there's these few little. Might even be too dark because the rocks have to be darker than this, so I might have it too dark. Water it
Red in
down.
it, right?
There.
For the stacks.
Yeah.
There's some red in it.
And there's these little tiny little things poking up. You can just suggest it. You don't have to know the anatomy of a freighter. Just give it a few of these little things, and then get your red. And I don't think that could be alizarin and yellow mixed together. So we'll just mix alizarin and yellow to get that red, bright sort of red look to it. And then blot it a little bit so it's not too dark. I think my freighter's too big. So then at the very end, you can do some calligraphy on your rocks because these are in the foreground. I'm just going to do some he has some interesting little thin marks on his rocks just to bring him in the foreground. If you do something like this, it'll start to look like it's up front. Okay.
I like the way you call that calligraphy.
It is calligraphy. And then up here, I'm still seeing it needs more dark,
Really
but
dark up there.
that's too blue. And it's still wet, so I might get some of the blossoming. He threw some back in there too, right before it dried, so we got some blossoming.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna hose that down a little bit.
I
With some
like
water.
the blossoming. I think it's pretty.
Yeah, I do too. I love it. And that's gonna dry quite a bit lighter. And then I'm seeing in here also, it's a little
I
bit
still
darker.
see a lot of yellow and.
Right here. So I just put a dark blob in and then I rinse my brush and I take water and go all the way around it. And it sort of dissipates it. I don't spread it, I just dot it until it spreads on its own.
Looks like rain getting ready to come out of those clouds.
Yeah, and it will dry a bit lighter, so. Over here it's a little darker too. Okay,
Wow.
did I miss anything?
Nope.
I got a few little water, oh, I did. Actually, I missed these little guys. You can do these with a thin brush too, and lighter brush. And they're smaller and they're flatter out here. It's like calligraphy out here too, adding a little more movement in the water. Some longer, some close together. Just make sure they're not all the same distance apart. That you're have a variety of ways.
Lengths and distances.
No, there's going to be a run back there. I'm going to leave it because I want to see what happens in the sky. But that's it.